first talk was all about planting the seeds and how we prepare the soil. And this afternoon, we're anticipating there being a harvest. So enjoying the fruits of all your conscious positive choices. So this is about the benefits of the Brahma Baharas, why we would cultivate them, why would we do these meditation practices. And it's lovely that we've all experienced this morning the benefits that Amita Shraddha led us through the Metta Bhavana, and you can appreciate the value in these practices. And for me, the main value in the Brahma Vihara meditations is insight into what benefits the world, which leads us on to the Bodhisattva ideal. And quite a few of you will understand what I mean by the Bodhisattva ideal. How can we best benefit the world? But I think there are other benefits along the way. And I'm going to say a bit more about insight later on in the talk, but for now, let's just talk about some of the other benefits, because dwelling on the benefits helps inspire you to do the practice. It's encouraging to notice that there are benefits. And the Buddha gave a discourse called The Benefits of Loving Kindness, the Metta Nisamsa Sutta. And in that, he listed 11 benefits from practicing metta. And I might just add that many of these benefits are being confirmed by contemporary scientific research. So he was onto something. This is the Buddha's list. Number 1, you sleep well. Number 2, you wake up feeling well. Number 3, you're not likely to have nightmares. Number 4, your body relaxes and your face is joyful. Number 5, even animals and celestial beings are drawn to you. Number 6, spirits protect you. Number 7, fire, poisons, and weapons will not harm you. And this one, fire, poisons, and weapons are metaphors for greed, hatred, and delusion, the 3 root poisons. Number 8, your mind becomes calm. Number 9, your complexion brightens. Number 10, you'll die with a clear mind. And number 11, you'll die in peace. So he's definitely pointing out quite a few benefits from doing the metta practice. Yeah? And I imagine some of them are the result of a lifetime of doing metta practice. But I came up with a short list of my own, and this is something you might like to do based on your own experience of doing the metta practice. And my list has only got 4 items on it to add to what the Buddha said. The first one, you can move beyond a fear response. The second one, people want to be your friend. The third one, you can help others to be happy. And the fourth one, you become part of the wave of positive energy in the universe.
Sudaya, is there a way of sharing your screen with that or repeating them, please?
I could, yes, that would be good, wouldn't it? Hang on, let me get back into the meeting. Share screen, which screen? Share. You got that? But then I can't carry on giving my talk. What I could do is send, well, the talk is being recorded, but I could also send it out to you. You could take a screenshot if you've got it up on your screen. Take a screenshot and then you'll have it.
And what was your last one, Sudaya?
My last one was about joining in the positive energy in the universe. You join in the wave of positive energy flowing through the universe.
Thank you.
All right, I'll stop that one now and go back to where I was. So I wanted to talk a bit about our intentions. It's good to clarify what our intentions are for practicing. Are we practicing just for our own enjoyment? Or do we want to benefit all beings or just some beings? Being more conscious of why we're doing the practices. Paradoxically, the best way to benefit all beings is to fully experience joy in our own lives. If we are expressing joy wholeheartedly, then it's infectious. Other people want to feel what we're feeling, and they want to learn how you got there. So the more wholehearted you can express joy, the more you can help other beings. I think sometimes we can feel a bit guilty about joy. If we have a strong Christian conditioning, for example, we may feel that joy is a bit extravagant or a bit frivolous. But joy is essential in the spiritual life. To the extent that we can recognize and rejoice in our capacity for joy, that is the extent to which we also have the capacity for compassion and mudita and sympathetic joy. So it's really, really important to get used to expressing our joy. And to reach our highest potential, to connect with our capacity to transform, and we want to blossom in the service of the Bodhisattva ideal. So we're talking again about how do we follow that golden thread, pick up that golden thread that we know is running through our life. You wouldn't be here today if you didn't have this golden thread that is leading you to your highest potential. How do we connect with that? How do we remember that that's what we want to be doing? Sometimes we can feel it's hard to be articulate about our positive emotions. We find it easier to talk about our negative emotions, but I'm sure we all have positive emotions. I hope you have lots of positive emotions. But do you recognize them? Do you acknowledge them and value them? Or do they feel a bit unsafe? But learning to acknowledge and develop our positive emotions is how they grow. Yeah? So we call on mindfulness to help us recognize our emotions and encourage them to flourish when they're positive emotions. We really value those moments when we're feeling good, we're feeling a bit of joy. It's like recognize that and value it. So through these practices, we're learning to change our habitual reactive responses into more open, curious, and kind responses. Whether it's responses to other people, to ourselves, or to the natural world that we're part of. We tend to allow our habits to dictate our emotions for us. It's like we're running on autopilot and we respond to something in the same way we have previously responded to it, even when that isn't necessarily the most appropriate response in the present moment. We just fall back on habit. It's a natural humans have survived as a species because we're very good at building habits. So what we're trying to do is build positive habits, aware, conscious habits, and not just running on autopilot where we do it the same way we did it last time, just because we don't want to have to think about it. So when our root intention is to be open and kind and curious, it becomes easier to be creative. And if we're creative, we can be more authentic in our responses. I have an example of being a bit creative just the other day in the garden. I took the cover off my compost heap and 4 mice scurried away. My autopilot response said, I've got to get rid of them. Can't stand it. Don't want mice in my compost heap. That was my immediate response. But then I thought, I'll let my creative curiosity come into play. And I thought, they're just trying to live their life. They're just doing their mouse thing. They're not trying to get in my way. How can we coexist? So there was a complete turnaround in my response to finding these mice in the compost. And underneath that, I know that next door's cat will probably do quite a good job of keeping the mice away. But I wanted my response to be one of building coexistence. How can we share the space that we're in? Because it's not my space. I've moved in on their space. The mice family was probably here a long time before I came along. So trying to be a little bit more creative about my responses. And when you get taken off guard, that's when it's harder to remember to be a bit reflective and turn towards a creative response. So unlike gardening, where if you plant carrot seeds, you're 99% likely to get carrots growing. When you plant Dharma seeds, you may experience some unexpected results. The timing and the nature of the fruits are not easily predicted. It's not a linear equation. You do X and you get Y. Dharma doesn't work like that. The one assumption we can make is that if we keep generating positive energy, there will be positive results. And we may or we may not know about them, but they'll be there. I'm sure you all know the story about the infectious smile traveling around a neighborhood. You smile at someone and they smile at somebody else, and then that person smiles at somebody else, and it changes their day and it saves their life, or something like that. Like the power of one smile moving through the world. I know it's harder in COVID times to do the smiling bit. We have to become more creative in how we express our metta when we're out in the world. And I'll just say something in here. I want to say something about it's not my metta or your metta. We are participating in an energy flow that pervades the whole universe. When I am being mettaful, I'm in tune with a current of positive energy that flows through all life. So it doesn't belong to me and I don't give it to you. It's like metta is just, it's like it's in the air and we tune into it and help spread it. That's how I see it anyway. So something else that might help clarify why we should do these practices. Buddha Ghosha, who was a 5th century Indian scholar and Buddhist, said, review the dangers in non-compassion. And that's quite a powerful statement. I'll say it again. Review the dangers in non-compassion. So we've probably all experienced the danger of non-compassion. When we get angry and we say something hurtful to someone, and you can undo a lot of good. So to help us think about why we want to be compassionate, review the dangers in non-compassion. I can think about it, if I stomp around my garden waving a big stick because I'm cross about something, I'll probably destroy some tender shoots or squash some animals. Remember what the Buddha said, hatred does not cease by hatred. Hatred ceases only by love. This is the eternal law. That's a quote from the Dhammapada. Hatred does not cease by hatred. So it's all trying to find more reasons to encourage us to practice metta, to practice compassion. We each have a unique longing in our hearts. We carry our own golden thread. We have a longing to be happy, to be met by others, to be loved. We each have a unique history, unique capacities, and also face unique obstacles. Only I can discover what is the next step forward for me. And I do that by accepting my own conditions as they are right now, by being honest about my own conditions as they are right now. I can make appropriate choices about how to become more free, more grounded, more wholehearted. I just want to clarify something about this word acceptance. I've come to realize that it has two related but different meanings, and the difference is quite important. When I say I accept something, I mean being honest about what is present acknowledging what is truly going on. So I'm accepting the truth. This is very different from acceptance, which means giving in to something and passively assuming that you can't change it. So if you reflect on that, you might understand what I'm getting at. There's two different ways we use the word acceptance. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't like the word acceptance because it sounds like it's very passive, but there's a very active acceptance where you're being honest about where you are and what's going on. So back to the Brahma Baharas. They're not really, we talk about the four Brahma Baharas, and they're not really four separate states or four different things. It's not like there are four different divine abodes. We divide them for the sake of analysis and explanation, but they do blend into each other and support each other. So they're mutually augmentative. You do one, you get better at the other, mutually augmentative. They enhance each other. So we describe the different aspects to help us to develop them. We become more familiar with the different flavors, and that helps us express them in our lives. So the first three, metta, mudita, karuna, are helping us move towards insight by going beyond our preoccupation with ourselves, with fulfilling our self-referential craving. We're learning through these bhavana meditations that we're an essential part of the universe, but we're not at the center of the universe. I'll keep saying that one. We're essential, but we're not at the center. We're learning to let go of our ego preferences by being equally merciful to all beings without craving, hatred, or indifference. And the fourth Brahma Vihara, upekkha, is about sitting easy with whatever comes along, being beyond the reach of the worldly winds. I think most of you will know what I mean by the worldly winds. So you become equanimous, you become able to ride the waves of emotion. So when a negative thought arises, it might sway your mood, but it doesn't cause your positive intentions to waver. So there's a difference between a temporary mood and your underlying intention. A bit more about upekkha, this fourth Brahma Vihara. The usual translation is equanimity. I also I've seen it translated as serenity, where you can just be serene. You know, you think of a monk or the Dalai Lama or somebody who, whatever is thrown at them, they're just serene. They're calm, they're collected, they're mindful. It's also about accepting limitations and rising above them. Stability is another word for it, that the stability of a surfer on a surfboard. Like they're moving, but they're actually quite stable because they're grounded on their board and they're riding the waves. Whatever comes at them, they're going to ride it. So that's a really nice image, I think. I didn't have a garden image for that one. I just had the surfer image for that one. I have a quote from Sam Harris, if any of you know Sam Harris, who has a blog and a podcast. We're aiming at just allowing the continuum of experience to be as it is, whether pleasant or unpleasant. We're aiming at just allowing the continuum of experience to be as it is, whether pleasant or unpleasant. So we're not chasing the pleasant experiences. We're enjoying the pleasant experiences, but we're also allowing that there will be unpleasant experiences. We can't stop that happening, but we're just allowing it to be as it is. We hear quite a lot in Buddhism about staying in the present moment. It really is a valuable teaching, but what does it mean? To me, staying in the present is about not feeding fantasies or fears about the future, recognizing that fears arise, but not allowing them to take us over. It's also about not dwelling and ruminating on the past, but being fully in touch with our experience of what's happening right now. Often coming back to the body. What's happening in my body right now? That's where the information is. And looking at that without manipulating our interpretation of what's happening. Sometimes we can manipulate it positively because we want a better outcome, and sometimes we manipulate it negatively through fear. So we understand what's going on now based on our previous experience, and no two people have the same previous experience. So we can't interpret what's happening for someone else. We each have a unique history, and we have a unique experience of the present moment. So we don't all share the same present moment, is what I'm trying to say. Back to the garden. Sometimes a crop fails. Do I just give up and say, I'm not doing that again? Obviously, gardening isn't the right thing for me. I've tried it and it didn't work. Do I get angry? Do I get downhearted? No. Or do I look at the causes and conditions that surrounded the apparent failure? Can I see what went wrong? What's to be learned? What can I do differently next time? Last year, I planted a crop of eggplants. I nurtured them from seeds to little seedlings. I planted them out and I watched them grow to about that high. And then I watched and I watched, and for about 2 months, nothing else happened. These eggplants, and 2 or 3 of them flowered and produced these tiny, tiny little eggplants. And that was it. Then came the winter and I had no eggplants. And I had put a lot of energy into nurturing them, watering them, feeding them, and it just didn't work. So there came a point where I just had to pull all these plants up and put them in the compost heap and say, all right, I did something wrong. So I did some research and I found out I should have watered them about 5 times more than I did. And I should have fed them about 5 times more than I did. And this year I'm going to try eggplants again and see what happens. So something in there about persistent learning from your failures, not seeing a failure as a negative thing. A failure is an opportunity to learn. Yeah? Something you might call a failure is just another opportunity to learn. I was talking just now about staying in the present, not letting the mind run off into the past or the future. There's a distinction I'd like to make here between another quote from Bodhipatcha, the wild mind guy. He says, happiness comes not from the experiences we're having, but from the way we relate to those experiences. Any experience has the possibility of becoming completely fulfilling if we choose to pay full attention to it and to appreciate it. I'll say that again. Happiness comes not from the experiences we're having, but from the way we relate to those experiences. Any experience has the possibility of being completely fulfilling if we choose to pay full attention to it and to appreciate it. So this is about being wholehearted. If we give our wholehearted attention to anything, the experience can bring happiness, even if the thing itself wasn't necessarily a happy thing. I mentioned earlier about my understanding that insight is the main benefit from working with the Brahma Baharas. So I want to say a bit more about insight. What do we having insight into? I feel it's about gaining clarity of purpose, getting more and more confident about how to be in the world. And it's about freedom of heart, freeing up our heart to be of benefit to the world. So this clarity of purpose, knowing why we're doing what we're doing. For me, that comes back to touching the golden thread. Why am I making this choice? Why am I moving in this direction? Why am I saying this? Does it align with my overall purpose? So that's what I mean by clarity. So the arising of insight may be a dramatic experience, but more usually it's a slow dawning of clarity, combined with the dropping away of self-absorption. Bhante Sangharakshita talked of insight as specks of dust landing on one side of the scales until there were enough to tip the balance. So we're talking tiny, tiny little increments, specks of dust landing on one side of the scales. So every time you have a little insight into yourself or the way the world is or something, it's like a tiny speck of dust landing on that side of the scales. So don't be impatient around insight. It will happen, it does happen, it just takes longer than you want it to. Each speck of dust is important. So value each insight, however small. The shift can be subtle and only recognized with hindsight, when you look back over time and see that you really have changed. You've aligned yourself more with your highest ideal. Or sometimes it's your spiritual friends who reflect back to you the changes they have witnessed. They see you as you are today. You tend to see yourself as you were some time ago. We don't update ourselves very often. So summarizing the reaping of fruits. Regular meditative practice of the Brahma Baharas has two main effects. Firstly, it will make these four sublime qualities sink deep into your heart so that they become your spontaneous attitude towards the world. And second, practicing these Brahma Baharas will bring about their boundless expansion, the unfolding of our clarity about the far-reaching influence these practices have. The Brahma Baharas are boundless. We can never reach the outer limits of the expression of them. And hence, we come to recognize our own boundlessness. Just as nature's bounty is endless, each plant expresses its unique potential, each animal grows into the best it can be, each tree blossoms in the way it's designed to blossom. We each have our own potential to share our boundless heart with the world. So practice the Brahma Bahara. Thank you.